Our next panel is I mentioned how traditional we are after 27 some odd years. We always have an interesting ship owners group. I hate calling them panels. They're more like a dialogue, and they are a dialogue with you. Alexander Hadjipateras is the Executive Vice President and Business Development of Dorian LPG. The moderator is Robert Shaw, Managing Director of Sea Trade Holdings Incorporated. And Elisabeth Grieg, co-owner of the Grieg Group and chair of the Grieg Maturitas board, is the third person in charge of this, because when you're dealing with a ship owners panel, ladies and gentlemen, everybody is in charge. It's going to be an interesting discussion. Take it away, please.
When you're ready.
Robert, go ahead.
Good afternoon or good evening. When the organizers of the conference asked me to moderate this panel, they suggested Shipowner Conversation, which of course can mean a great many possibilities. And so I discussed with the panelists what they, as ship owners, felt were the topics that were most important to them personally and to their companies, that they thought could be the best subjects of conversation. And they both came back independently with a very similar response, with a focus of emphasis that I think reflects their own personal commitments and those of their companies to sustainability and to promoting the welfare of crews, in particular in the current COVID crisis. And what's very interesting is that both companies, in addition to espousing or talking about these objectives, do practice what they preach and have been leaders in the field. And I think you will find that what they have to say is very interesting. They both come from companies with very long traditions in the industry, dating back to the 19th century, from leading centers, Grieg from Bergen in Norway, and Dorian with its origins in Eleusis, the island in the Eastern Aegean. I think that if you go to their websites, which I very much recommend, if you go to the company's websites, you will get a very quick and good idea of just how committed these companies are to the objectives and principles they talk about. I'll begin with Elisabeth Grieg, who is a co-owner at the Grieg Group. She's the chair of the holding company. And if you look at the website, one of the very interesting things is, although it's a private company, it gives, to my mind, much more meaningful and accessible information than you can discern from many public companies. Less is definitely more in terms of a few very clear and telling pages than hundreds of pages of disclosure often. The Grieg Group is involved in many areas, and Elisabeth personally is involved in many areas relating to sustainability and to climate change and trying to combat climate change and social responsibility. She's an advocate for gender equality and has many years' experience in the maritime industry. She lives with her husband in Oslo and is the mother of 3 children and a grandmother of 4 children. And I will begin by asking Elisabeth to tell us something about her group's commitment in the areas I've talked about and why these challenges and commitments are so important to her and her group. Elisabeth, could you give up the audience a brief description or outline of the Grieg Group's work implementing the UN Sustainable Development Goals and how you've applied them in your business's strategy?
Sure. Thank you very much, Robert, and thank you for inviting me to this conference. Of course, I would have loved to be in New York to see you face to face, all of you guys. But we have to hang in there a little bit longer. I'm a great fan of New York, and actually that was my last travel. That was to New York March last year. And let's hope that it will be 2021 that we can go back there. So, but thank you for inviting me. And I think it's impossible to talk about any conference or any, today without touching upon the situation with the pandemic. I'd like to start by saying that I think we've been lucky in the Grieg group, but we had also been stuck hard both financially and organizationally. And as you said earlier, I mean, we have had some key challenges when it comes to crew changes, and we will get back to that later on. I think both Alex and myself will touch upon it. But I'd like to start on a positive note. Because I think you asked me about the UN Global Compact and the SDGs, and I think it's a fantastic toolbox to help us as business owners and developers to use the SDGs and the challenges that we have today to develop new solutions and new technology. And I'd like to start with a small anecdote. I was present at this conference a couple of years ago, an ocean conference in Oslo. It was at the Opera House of Oslo, and lots of people. We were sitting close to each other, and it was debating and good discussions. And the mood was a bit sort of, the ocean has so much trouble, and, unless we act now, we will go to hell. And, everyone was sort of, the guys were walking out to stage in their suits, and they looked so bleak, and they described this picture of having to take responsibility and so on and so forth. And then this young tech guy, he came into the stage. It's quite a huge stage at the Opera House, and he was wearing his caps and crumpled T-shirt, and he walked all the way to the end of the stage, and he looked down at all the doom and gloom people that were sitting there and thinking that this planet of ours is going to go under unless we are acting now. And then he said, "No one wants to be on a sinking ship." And what he meant was that, if we just talk about all the challenges, the problems, and everything is gloom and doom, then no one really wants to step up. But if, as he said, everyone wants to be on a winning team. So if we can together, with maybe the most important sustainability goals of the 17, that's cooperation, it's partnership. If we can step up together and see that all these opportunities that will arise from having to solve the new development into the green solutions, new technology, it's amazing what we can do together. And look what we have done this year. It's just fantastic. I mean, we are all working from home. The digital tools that we are using, we're not familiar with them before. I mean, look at what we have done when it comes to remote digital operations. We never thought it was possible. These are times of opportunities, and I think we need to sort of lighten up and see that we can find good solutions together if we work together. And that, when you ask me, Robert, what do I want to talk about, that is what I want to talk about, and the work that we have done in the Grieg group.
Good.
So I started.
Well, if we could go from the general to the particular, I want two of the things that are very interesting on the Grieg website. Apart from the fact, one thing that struck me was that 25% of the group's shares are held by a foundation, which I thought was remarkable and obviously laudable. But also I was very intrigued in talking about sustainability with both Grieg Green and Grieg Edge. And I was wondering if you would let our audience hear a little bit about those two initiatives, because I think they are very good examples of tangible actions being taken that both have a good business purpose and are consistent with sustainability.
Sure, Robert. I think I will start by saying, I mean, I think, as I said earlier, this is the times of opportunities. And the big challenges that we have for this planet and the huge challenges that we have developed for ourselves also have good solutions. I mean, billions of dollars are going to be invested in new technology in the next 10 years, if we are at all, to be able to reach the SDGs by 2030. And so the ambitious is big. Well, if we start with Grieg Green, we started Grieg Green 10 years ago in 2010. And it was because we had come to a point where we had to recycle some of our older ships. And we saw that if we were to do that in the way most ships are being recycled in the world today, with no security for the people working at the yards, with no security for the environment, for dangerous, hazardous materials. We would break all the ethical guidelines that we had in the book in the Grieg group. So we just couldn't do it. So we had to find a better way to do this, to recycle our own ships. And it started out in China, really, where we find some good yards we cooperated with. And then we developed a system where we could recycle in a green and responsible way. And as we had done that a couple of times for our own ships, then I had one of my colleagues, he came and he said, you know, I'm doing this master thesis. And I was wondering if I could write sort of about how to make a business out of this. How can we make business out of sharing our knowledge about doing good and doing it responsible when it comes to recycling, because we knew a lot of ship owners wanted to do that. And so we started this new business, Grieg Green, 10 years ago, and today we make good money. We are one of the biggest within green recycling of ships and rigs. And we do other, we have developed other products as well that we are that are within. So it's what we say, to do good is the obvious business opportunity, and this shows that it is business in doing good, and taking difficult challenges that we have for our industry and make it into a business. So I think Grieg Green is a very good example on that. Do you want to hear about Grieg Edge, or do you want to move on to Alex, maybe? You let me know.
Well, if you could touch on Grieg Edge for a couple of minutes, I think it would be very interesting, and then we'll move to Alex, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Again, we see very clearly, which I'm sure a lot of my colleagues around the world does the same way in the industry, that we are at the tipping point in a way. The environment is changing so fast. The expectations from our customers, our banks, society at whole, our employees, everyone is expecting us to develop new solution, new technology into the new green shift in order for us to get emissions down to as close to zero as possible. We have to take responsibility within our industry as a whole. So we saw that, well, we need to establish a company that has that as a purpose, an innovation company in a way, that are solely looking at how can we develop new technology to meet the green shift for the future of our industry. So we established then Grieg Edge in January last year, so in the midst of a pandemic. And it is, purpose is to develop new business opportunities within shipping and related maritime segments with sustainability as a prerequisite. So we have joined different zero emission energy initiatives. We have done that in partnership with companies like Aker Solutions, Kværner, Equinor, Wärtsilä, and others. Because again, this importance of partnership, you can't do this alone, you have to cooperate. And right now, just before the year end, we got a grant from the Norwegian government to develop a new ammonia ship to solely run on ammonia, and we will develop that together with Wärtsilä. And that shows that also government, business, organizations, if working together, we can really step up and deliver some solutions that are there for the future.
Thank you very much. All very interesting. Alex, in looking at the Dorian website, what I noticed was also a great emphasis on sustainability, and also a concern for seafarers during this time, in particular during this time because of COVID. But I thought that what Michael Parker was talking about earlier today was apposite in relation to your website, because he was saying that, you know, of course, the innovation of the kind Elisabeth is talking about is potentially revolutionary, but it's also extremely important even for incremental improvements to occur in the meantime. And Michael was talking about that. And it seems to me that your website very much exemplifies that in terms of the type of ships, the way they've been built, the way you're tracking their performance. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about those things, your company's experience and what you're doing in those areas. And then if you could also talk a little bit about the way you're handling the problems that have arisen with crews and COVID.
Thank you, Robert, and I'm delighted to be here, and it was wonderful listening to Elisabeth as well. Absolutely. So Dorian went public in 2014. We have a fleet of 22 ships now, 19 eco vessels. And one of the key focuses, I know a hot topic, of course, is we're talking about emissions, but we look at the overall performance of the vessels. So this means the routing she takes, her hull condition, everything that can impact her performance and basically what she is putting back into the air in terms of carbon dioxide. So we're very focused on having like a digital window into the ship, if you want to put it that way. We have sensors on board the vessel. We're tracking and speaking with people to the vessels. We have an ex-captain with us who has a background also in computer science. We're training our crews. And we take a very much integrated approach to how the vessels are operated. And I think that, as you mentioned, in terms of we have to take baby steps along the way, although we all know what the target is, this is one key way that we can see measurable improvements, and indeed we have already today. And in the meantime, we work very, very closely with the engine manufacturers. We had signed an agreement with Hyundai Heavy Industries about the potential to convert some ships to LPG as fuel, which we still have the option to do on about half the fleet. We've worked with hybrid scrubbers, which we installed. So we're looking at a collaborative approach. We're very in touch with what the new designs might be, not only in terms of what the fuel is burning, but also the capacity of the ship and how they can be more economical and how they'll transit. So, you know, it's a bit of a cliche, but we really take a look at the whole ecosystem of how the ship is built and operated. And on the crewing, I think, I mean, as we were saying before, it's, you know, anyone who is involved in the shipping business the last year, crewing and any type of travel has been extraordinarily difficult, and the crews have continued to move around, to move goods around the world. And our role has been, prior to the Neptune Declaration and now after the Neptune Declaration, to ensure the safety of our crews and their families. Each ship is a mini bubble, so we're very concerned when a new crew member goes on board that we don't put any risk on board that vessel for the crew who are already there. And we also want to enable crews to return safely to their families in time for holidays, in time to see their children. if their wife is pregnant, etc. So we had very standardized protocols around testing ourselves, but in working with Graham Westgarth and Jeremy Nixon as part of the Neptune Declaration Working Group, we were able to formulate those into kind of a paper, which was signed off by over 300 companies, including oil majors, third-party ship managers, many shipping companies, including Grieg. So this provides 4 pillars, including priority access, a request for priority access for vaccines for seafarers, a request for them to have free transit, air transit, and it standardizes based on the Singapore STAR protocols, a gold standard of testing, so that the charterers who were involved in the working group, like companies like Cargill, feel comfortable that when a crew change is enacted, they're safe and they're not at risk of having a disruption to their operations. And in many cases, we have ships that are on subcharter to 2 or 3 different companies, and we want to protect down that chain to make sure the operations can go smoothly. And indeed, the charterers that signed on to this declaration made a point of saying that they will not have no crew change policies in their spot charters, which we had seen earlier in the year, or last year.
Yes. Elisabeth, have you any particular experiences or insights on crew changes you want to share?
No, I'm just going to support what Alex has said. I mean, it's been hardship on our crew, for sure. They have paid a high price for the pandemic, and they have been fantastic. And I think the teamwork, the partnership, the colleagues that are supporting each other, and also the industry going together with the authorities in order to develop solutions to solve this great challenge that we've had is just it's very good to see, and it shows again this partnership thing that I've been talking about is so important, that we can really make a difference if we work together.
Yes. Yeah, from my own experience, I've seen with our company's crews, I've been so impressed by the patience of the seafarers. Really, they have been incredibly cooperative. And one of the things that we've been concerned about is the psychological well-being. And we have taken the step of having accessibility through the technical management company that we work with, to have a psychologist available should they wish to consult people, because after so long on board, you really worry about their psychological well-being. I don't have any further questions, and I know that our 2 panelists, because the program has run over a bit, have deadlines that they've got to meet. I don't know if there are any questions from the audience, but we can open it for very brief questions if there are any. Let me just see. I think there may be. I don't think there are. And therefore, I would like to thank you both very much, and the organizers. I think it was a stimulating and indeed inspirational at times. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Elisabeth.
Thank you, Alex. And goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
All right, well, that concludes that panel, the live panel of the day, the Shipowner Conversation. And now what we're going to do is go to Clay Maitland, who's going to intro Marina Hadjipateras for the closing remarks.
Our closing remarks are going to be given now by Marina Hadjipateras, who I have already introduced, and has been the moderator of the digitization a part of this program, which we've heard. And in addition to that is the sister of Alexander Hadjipateras. So you're getting both brother and sisters this year, a first for our conference.
And now we've come to the conclusion of the 27th annual HACC-NACC Shipping Conference, Navigating Uncharted Waters, Shipping in a Pandemic Age, and our first ever virtual conference. So additional uncharted waters to navigate. Thank you all for your participation. A special thanks to the crew that helped put this together, to the board, our speakers, and sponsors. We look forward to another successful in-person event next year. Stay safe in the meantime.
All right. That concludes our session for the HACC-NACC's 27th Annual Shipping Conference. Thank you for joining us. But before we leave, there's 2 breakout sessions left to go. One is Foreign Policy in the Biden Administration, hosted by Blank Rome, and the other is U.S. Offshore Wind, Revolution, Not Evolution, hosted by DNVGL. Each of those 2 breakouts are accessible via the blue buttons underneath the video player, the middle button and the button to the left. So take a look at those and click on those, and those will have a limited time length on them as long as the organizers want to run those. So make your selection, and thank you again for joining us from Maritime TV for the 27th Annual HACC-NACC Shipping Conference. I'm Dave Gardy from our studios here near Washington, D.C. Thanks for watching.